every time somebody like that I don't really know and has seen the podcast, they're like, I love that Market on the Rocks episode.
Hell yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, Chase is on to something.
My coach insisted that's going to be the one that goes viral. No other realtors doing that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, probably for good reason, but okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Am I allowed to drink whiskey?
if you must.
I mean, I feel like whiskey's always fall-esque.
Yes, go for it.
All right, let's get in
Do you
here.
want to? I'll just make my own drink over here.
Well,
right.
show me what we're
Okay,
doing.
all right.
We have a signature drink, right?
Yeah, well, so hopefully Opus Clips will take this part
I'm
out.
gonna turn this up a little.
I'll become a TikTok drink influencer. So today we're doing adult butter beer. This is entirely a recipe that I came up with while shopping in Specs today.
I've never had butterbeer.
No kids harassed me when I was in Specs today. But yeah, so butterbeer is made famous by, Harry Potter. But to be fair, I've never actually seen more than like one Harry Potter movie. So
I've never seen a Harry Potter movie in my life.
I've had it at Universal twice. So let's see. Here we had some whipped cream vodka, some amaretto. So for any non-drinkers out there, amaretto is almond flavor.
This is the recipe?
This is the recipe. I'm just like making it up as I go. This is butterscotch beer.
Aren't we all just making it up as we go?
That's how I do life. That's how I do this industry. Ooh. All right. I get a sense it'll be mad okay.
Let's try it. I'm going to save my whiskey as it's a chaser.
Our last thing is a vodka-infused whipped cream.
Wow.
$22 whipped cream. That was more than I spent on real estate this week.
$22 whipped cream. And these are called, again, butter beers?
The adult butter beer. So,
okay.
I don't think Harry Potter's had this much, negligence in it. Put a little. This is a Walmart.
Is this
cinnamon,
the garnish?
It is now. Cinnamon roll popcorn. All right.
To episode 2 of Market on the Rocks.
Episode 2. Let's see.
We'll start it off right there.
Oh, that's fire.
Ooh. It's a little on the sweet side, but you know what?
I love sweet things.
Speaking of Market on the Rocks, and here I'm already spilling my first drink.
Perfect.
So we left because I had somewhere to be the last time we did Market on the Rocks.
Yeah, you had a closing at 9 p.m.
That's right.
Who do you close?
Yeah, no, I do. I know exactly who it was, and they did. They wanted to do a late closing that I had to get to, and then I made sure that I have nowhere to be after this. So, you've got whipped cream on your face. I just won't be able to. I won't be able to.
Yeah, it was our operations manager over there in the back was trying to tell me, but honestly, it was probably a good fall theme.
So I ran out of here to go to this closing, and then when I came back, I wasn't here over the weekend. Following podcasts we were doing, I was watching guests like putting their hands on the tables and like kind of like looking at their hands, and I realized like we made a fucking mess. And like the table was so sticky, and so I had to like wipe everything down. But there were one or two people before I noticed how messy the table really was, because I was kind of just busy during the week, and when I put these in between my schedule. And so this time I'm going to remember that I don't have any podcasts tomorrow, but I'll make sure I give this table a deep clean, because I can already tell what a mess it's going to be.
This is how I know that I was here, because there's been a mess and just like liquor spilled all over your table. But things I got to discuss before we really get into it. First,
yeah, let me know, man.
Is the wig under the hat?
No.
And is there an update on the wig?
There is not. Well, there is an update, actually. The update is I've decided the wig I'm going for, and I have the website and everything, but I don't need to order it just yet because the unveiling isn't going to happen until 2024.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's going to, well, I don't want to say exactly when, because there's a surprise for some people that are fans of the show, and I don't want to ruin it for them, but it'll be in 2024.
Wow, it's going to be a on podcast reveal.
No. The initial reveal is going to be at an event.
Oh, nice.
And then we'll do a reveal. I think we should save it for Market on the Rocks.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I will not break character. I will wear that wig the entire time.
God, it's fantastic. I can't wait.
It'll be good. I haven't fully decided yet my hair color, since I can change that. That's not set in stone, but my natural hair color is, like a dirty blonde, but maybe I want to go dark and mysterious like you.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, I wish I could go darker and more mysterious. Other news, you have a lot of podcasts now, and
I do.
Now you have, not only are you doing your own podcast, now you have multiple spin-offs.
Yes.
And I'm sure this is better than any coffee chat you've had with agents.
For sure.
This has got to be way better content.
For sure. This definitely creates more of a connection, and it's definitely more fun. And then when it's all said and done, we have content to produce to get in front of, our potential clients. And it's been very interesting, because not only has it been an education for me in regards to kind of the way that people are willing to carry themselves through marketing. I don't know if you saw the episode with Andrew Dubé.
Yeah.
Just a great example of somebody who is very, very, just direct, or whatever you want to call it, about being who
Authentic.
he is. Authentic. Thank you. Very authentic about who he is, and you're either in or you're in the way when it comes to him. And I think, in this day and age, there's something to be said for that, because I'll be the first to admit it. We change sometimes who we are in front of other people to, whether it be please people or maybe not rock the boat, whatever it is. So that was a great episode, and he's the one I would say is the furthest as far as maybe evolved in that. So there's been education in that. You've helped me with kind of doing the fun stuff, right?
Okay.
I mean, I'm telling you right now, we get a lot of attention from this podcast. I really do look forward to it, and I want to thank you, because when you brought it to me, I mean, on the surface, I was like, this is going to be so much fun, but I can't sugarcoat it. There's definitely a part of me that was like, is this a good idea? Right? I tend to be pretty conservative and, pun intended, who I let my hair down in front of, right?
That's fair.
So, kudos to you on that. But, we've had agents that want to do spinoffs with their own take on things. We've had agents or not just agents, but business owners that want to come in. They want to interview me instead of the other way around. Nice. And it's been a learning experience, man. And it's been a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. I mean, I think this thing just took off so well for you, because, I mean, I think of all the lenders who are begging agents for like coffee meetings, lunch meetings, and I mean, no free lunch is worth, a face-to-face with a salesperson.
Right.
But if you can say, hey, come to my studio, we're just going to have a regular chat, and then you get content to share, later. Even if the agents aren't working with you, when they're posting you on their social media, other agents think they are.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the plan, and, it's not even about whether or not other agents think that the real estate agent is working with me. That wasn't really where my head was at. It was more along the lines of agents that are going to watch you, and they're at the very least going to say, who's this other guy?
Yeah.
Right? And I think that one of the things that we all do, whether we want to admit it or not, is, we troll people. I don't know any other way to say it. It's easy to go on the internet and kind of almost create not a relationship, but just maybe like an opinion on somebody, when you can go online, you can see where do they eat, what do they do, how do they act. And so seeing somebody on camera having a unscripted conversation with someone else that it allows you to really go, that guy seems all right. And my whole brainchild behind it was, yes, obviously I want to get in front of agents, but more importantly, I really just want to be genuine with who I am. And because I've been doing this for long enough that, there might be loan officers out there better, but everybody, we all reach a tier in our industry where it's like, look, I'm not the best, but I'm amongst the best. So it's like, let's get past that. Like, do you want to work with somebody who's really good at what they do, who you also kind of like? I mean, I think that I've said this comment, and it's one of the things I say about Gold Star. I want to make it our motto. Gold Star, we've got a great community of other branch managers across the country, and we meet once a year. And I have literally given the toast like the last 3 years in a row is that the only thing better than making money is making money with your friends.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anybody can argue that.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you can make friends with the people that you're working with and making money with, like, does it really get any better?
Yeah.
And I mean, as an agent, you have to deal with lenders, insurance companies, title companies, like.
Yeah. I'd rather, all of my, partners that I work with, to be close. My general contractor who did both my house remodels, I was showing him houses today for him to potentially buy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, all right, good. Let's keep it in the group,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, everyone I work with, whether it's, insurance, lending, contractor, a title, I'm pretty close with them. And I know I can ask them for their expertise on anything at minimum.
I'd say that's like a 50-50 split because one of the things that I, as a lender, I look up real estate agents' production on a semi-regular basis. Not to be creepy.
Don't look on mine this quarter.
Well, I'm not necessarily looking up your production. That's not as important to me as who you are working with, right? So I can tell you where your loans have been going. I know who you use as a lender, or better yet, I know if you just basically use whoever comes on the approval letter.
Yeah.
Right? So the point I'm trying to make is that what you just said is you really like to kind of keep it in the family, if you will, with, you want to know the title company, you want to keep the same contractor, you want to know the same lender, you see the value in it, not only to your clients, but for your own peace of mind, right? Yeah. Like I'm going to work a whole hell of a lot harder for an agent that I know is like on the same page and we're referring business than the random agent who I can't even get on the phone.
Yeah, for sure.
And who's that going to benefit the most?
The buyer, everyone.
Our clients, who is supposed to be the most important piece of the transaction. And so when I look up agents' productions, it's pretty surprising the amount of agents that do what I would consider to be, good business. They're not knocking it out of the park, but they're doing good business. And you'll see, I'll just use round numbers. I mean, if they're closing 10 transactions in a year, you're seeing 10 different lenders.
Yeah.
And even if it might be the same lender, because, people work with local bank, Chase, this, that, and the other, it's 10 different loan officers. So you'd be surprised how many people don't think the way you do.
That's a surprise.
It is surprising.
In every home buying consultation, which obviously in this quarter I haven't had many, but in every home buying consultation, it ends with, hey, let's get you pre-approved. I'm going to send you to my guy. Obviously, I cannot force you to use anybody.
Sure.
But I can tell you the process is going to be great with my. I mean, I can't guarantee what the seller is going to do on the other end of the transaction. But as far as what I can do and what my lender will do, the process will be great if you use my team.
Right.
Same with my inspector. And if you, use my title company and use my, contractor and all that, the process will be great. Obviously, you can go shop rates, but unless you have a best friend who's also a lender, take it back to my guy and just see if he'll match it.
Right.
Like he'll go back to his big boss and see if they can do something. I made a video about that because, lenders for builders will always give out these massive incentives. And I'm sure they're charging elsewhere for it.
They're, well, the buyer's paying for it, but yeah.
So I would say take that back to local lender too. And I mean, you're an honest guy. You'll tell them if they're getting better deal from the builders.
I've been in this business way too long enough to try to convince somebody to do business with me if we're not the best deal. Don't get me wrong. I always give this caveat, like, I have seen instances where people are like, hey, I found this other lender. They're $500 less expensive. And even at that point, we'll go ahead and match that deal. And I just get mad at myself because I feel like if you're going to ask me to reduce my commissions by a couple $100, I clearly have not pitched enough value, right? Like
that's fair.
I think that, when we're talking about spreads and commissions, you're buying a $500,000 house and, you're like, hey, are you going to cover my appraisal cost? It almost gets to the point of it's just somewhat offensive. And I'm wondering how in the world you could even ask me that. You know, it's like going out for coffee with your buddy and he goes and orders both of them and he goes, hey, you got this?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't know.
That's fair. I mean, I would say almost every single seller I get, unless we've done business before, they almost always ask me for some type of discount when we sign the agreement. To me, I'm just like, okay, how much time do I have right now? How easy will it be to sell your house? And I just kind of, weigh it out.
Sure.
I mean, I think people just want to feel that they got a deal. And if knocking half a point off my commission is what really just changes everything for them.
What do you think the psychology behind that is?
I think these people have all been told by their friends, real estate commissions are negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's kind of like I recently got solar panels. I signed the contract for the solar panels for my house. Immediately after I did that, I started asking my neighbors with the solar panels, oh, what did you pay? And then I'll tell them what I paid. And they're like, you motherfucker.
You paid less. Is what
Way
you're saying.
less.
Okay.
Yeah, like my house is 2,200 square feet, not to flaunt. My neighbor who has a 1,600 square foot house got solar panels from the same company.
Uh-huh.
She paid $78,000. My neighbor down the street, who has probably the same size house as me, paid $36,000. I was like, I paid $23,000, all from the same company.
I mean, so I guess from the same company, that's a little bit different than kind of what I'm getting at. Because, yeah, I think about, people driving BMWs and Mercedes and, buying Louis Vuitton and high-end things. And it's interesting how in certain purchasing situations, overpaying for a product is a flex. But then in purchasing situations and other types of products, if you pay more than someone else, not only did you get charged more, but there is some strange, like, you're dumb. Like, it's a sign of stupidity. Because I always think one of the things that always cracks me up, and I really do feel like it's an American thing, in addition to, the whole let's make a deal, and, that obviously is worldwide, right? But the one thing that I'm always very surprised about is how many people will talk about something, maybe it's a pair of shoes. Women do this a lot, where it's like, look at these new shoes I just got. And they're like, oh my gosh, those are amazing. Like, got them on sale. Half off. And all of a sudden we're supposed to be like, ah.
Girl math, that's free.
Right. And it's just interesting to me, I guess, because I don't know. I don't really shop like that. And my theory behind it is that I think we're a society that consumes so much garbage that we buy things that we don't really need. And when we buy something we don't need, we have to justify that we got a good deal on it.
That's fair.
Because if you're buying something you really need, like, I mean, I know we see it from time to time, but you don't typically see people bragging about the amount of money that they bought groceries for lately. That's kind of gone to the wayside. Right?
Yeah, you don't see people bragging about, like, driving a city over for discounted gas.
Right. Like, there's just certain things that you don't, like, that you're still mindful of when you buy, but you're not bragging about. And I swear to God, you, like, struck a nerve with me, because this is something I think about a lot. Like, the things that people will haggle over versus the things that they will just pay for blindly versus the things that people will overpay for and brag about.
Yeah. Okay, well, this brings me into a similar discussion. I was having this conversation with my business coach this morning. I think from my perspective, we're talking about a lot of buyers are holding back from buying houses right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm finding that most of the people I'm talking with, whether it be friends or potential clients or whatever, are saving money right now. They're not trying to spend extra that they don't have to. My business coach said the opposite. He's in Orange County, California, where everyone has to constantly flex on each other.
Right.
But he was saying, no, consumer spending is just as high as it's always been.
It's
what
true.
Are you saying?
Well, I mean, it is. You can see the stats on it, but what the problem or what people aren't recognizing is that consumer spending is as high as it's ever been, but it's not people spending their savings or their cash. They're turning to credit. And I mean, I've got a lot of theories on that. I mean, the main one, the easiest one is, again, I'll go back to culturally. It's amazing to me because I've been in finance like this for over 20 years. It's truly amazing to me how certain people can get into a lifestyle and will bankrupt themselves before they like slow down.
Mm-hmm.
If someone will give them credit, they're going to buy it. You know, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it goes back to what I was saying, you know, the kind of keeping up with the Joneses. I relate it to cars where like people can't like ever downgrade a car.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for people to admit to friends and family, like, yeah, financially things aren't going as well for me as like they were a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
But as someone who's never been in a salaried or even hourly position and only been in a commission-based position, I've had to do that 3 or 4 times in my life where I have to say to my friends, hey, listen, like, market's not doing well. You know, I'm not going to be homeless, but like, you know, we're going to cut back on some vacations. Like, we're not going out to that fancy dinner with this other couple. And, you know, it's like that honesty for some people is terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And I think right now we just have a lot of people financially that have written checks that their butts can't cash and that their bank accounts might not cash, pun intended.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, you know, this podcast's all about honesty.
Yeah, it is.
I was complaining to you and our upcoming guest who just walked in the room.
Finally.
I know, yeah. We'll give him one more topic and he'll come on. He's now staring me down. But yeah, I mean, I was complaining to both of y'all. I was saying, from the outsider's perspective, we have so many agents that are leaving the market right now.
Yep.
That they see my production, they're like, you have 7 active listings?
Yeah.
That's incredible. How? From my side, I'm like, bro, I haven't had a paycheck in 4 months.
Yep.
Like, yeah, I got 7 active listings, not a single buyer buying them. I'd rather 2 good qualified buyers right now. And like, yeah, the market will turn. Or my sellers are going to get desperate, and we're going to start lowering these to prices where they have to move.
Well, according to the plaintiffs in the NAR suit, you make too much money anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe I should go half a year without a check.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, so while I'm staying busy, like, am I happy about it? I don't know. I got 7 sellers who are breathing down my neck every day asking why their house doesn't have any showings. And I'm like, look, I don't control the market. There's 27,000 other agents who aren't bringing you a client either.
Wait a second. You mean you don't have control of the market?
No, believe it or not. I mean, I always thought I did from my, you know, wacky Instagram and stuff. Certainly I know everything.
Yeah. No, I get it. And, you know, same thing. You can't control the market. I don't control interest rates, but man, some of the what is it? The hate I get, you'd think that I'm directly in control of the interest rates that are out there right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, I've used this line, you know, with friends, with like family, like, hey, I can't afford that right now. Like,
but that's big of you. That's kind of to my point,
and
though.
so I've like really started reducing my marketing budget. What I kind of found is a lot of things I've been spending on, I probably didn't need to begin with, but I started spending on this marketing when the market was incredible. And I mean, to be fair, like I wasn't even looking at my credit card bill for the last 2 years. I'm like, whatever. If I sell 2 houses a month, everything's paid for. It's fine. I paid it all in full. I don't have any debt other than, you know, my mortgage. Now I'm like looking at my credit card bill every month, and I'm like, all right, let me make sure I can allot the funds here.
Well, and to your coach's point, though, like when we talk about consumer spending, I think the part that he's forgetting about is consumer spending encompasses all sorts of spending plus credit cards, which people have access to credit. It's a whole hell of a lot harder to get a mortgage than it is to get a credit card. I mean, that's just plain and simple. So, you know, one of the things that I've been talking a lot about lately on this podcast is there's people out there that legitimately just can't afford to buy a house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can try to get creative and buy down interest rates and do all of the things, but like 1 and 1 will never equal 3. So for those buyers, like I feel for you, you know, hopefully things come back, or maybe you get a raise or figure out ways to make more money. I mean, there are, you know, there's things we can talk about with that. There are 2 types of people out there right now, and there are the ones that can afford to buy, that are looking to buy and considering buying, and then there's others that can't afford to buy but just don't like the current state of affairs with the way the market is. And what I've identified is the amount of people, and frankly, some of the same people that are currently complaining about high interest rates were the same people that were complaining about high asking prices when interest rates were in the 2% range. And
Yeah.
but the difference, the common denominator about both of these people that I'm talking about is they could have afforded to purchase in either market. So, those are things that I think, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like EQ, like emotional quotient. I don't know if it's like sales courses that people need to take or whatever, but I in any market seem to be able to identify the large amount of buyers and real estate agents that are like, man, if I had lower rates, I'd sell more homes. And then when we had lower rates, they were like,
if I had less competition,
if I'd let, and it doesn't matter what market you're in. I'm here to tell you, you need to start thinking more like a salesperson as a real estate agent. And we'll get into this about my opinion on the lawsuit. I think that the last 12 months, and I think for the next 12 months, real estate agents that, focused mainly on just, trying to be that friendly real estate agent that when you're ready to buy, I'm here to help. Like, that's a part of it. But your real job is to negotiate contracts, and it's going to become to negotiate your commissions, whether you're on the listing side or the buy side. And I think people that got into real estate because they thought that they were, doing something like philanthropy are going to have to start to realize that they're in a sales job.
Yeah.
So I'm fearful for a lot. I've been fearful for a lot of agents because, again, I've heard I've never seen the flip that I've seen from, low rates, high price to high rates, reduced prices. I've never seen in the 20 years I've been in this business that flip so fast. And so when it goes slowly, you don't notice it as much. But when it happens quick, man, you're like, it's like, it's like when it's like the weather right now, fall, market on the rocks. It's like waking up and it's 32 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you go to lunch, you've got your sweater on, you've got your winter coat on, and you go to lunch and it's 85 here in Austin. You're like, you recognize that heat.
Yeah.
At 85 when you woke up and it was 32. That is exactly how I feel about these two markets, watching real estate agents complain about, I need less competition, my buyers can't make offers over asking, can we do sales without home sale contingencies, to rates are too high, my buyers can't afford this, or even if they can, they don't want to pay.
Yeah. This might have been like a shower thought I had the other day.
I love shower thoughts.
Well, I got plenty of them. I'll start recording them for you. The first thought was, I used to complain in the 2021, early 22 market. I was like, man, my buyers keep getting, beat by all of these other buyers. And then I realized every single buyer I had during that time did eventually buy a house. Some of them, the ones that were going for the more competitive areas, it wasn't until the market started slowing down. But right after the market started slowing down, like that summer of 2022, I got so many people houses because they had been shopping for a while. I'm like, finally, this is your opening. But the other thought I had was, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm just not thinking about all the possibilities, but it will never be cheaper, monthly payment-wise, to purchase a home.
Right now?
Well, so here's the thing. So let's say that rates were to go down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now more people are going to be bidding on homes.
Sure.
We're probably going to have this little month where we're going to see rates are going to go down. Housing inventory might spike because all these sellers are saying, ooh, I can get out of my, home and get into an okay interest rate. But I think right after that, then home prices are going to skyrocket back up. And then we're going to be back in the same monthly payment situation of, rates are a tad lower. They're in the 5s, and now you're paying 10% over list again.
It's relative, right? I mean, because even now with inflation, things just, your money doesn't spend the way that it is. I have to give a shout out to one of my friends in Cleveland who also is a mortgage lender for a different company, Stas. I hope you see this, man. He did a video that really just cracked me up because he's one of these guys that's just so brutally honest and just direct. And he was like, look, everybody's complaining about rates. And before we were complaining about rates, we were complaining about house prices. He's like, it's always been this way. There's always an obstacle to home ownership. But, it reminds me of, do you know the 2-step process to losing weight?
Exercise and eat less.
Bang, right? We can talk about the keto diet. We could talk about Atkins diet, South Beach diet. Maybe you do plyometrics, blah, blah, blah. You want to lose weight, eat less, move around more. And basically what he said was you want to buy a home, save up money for a down payment, get your credit to where you can afford, to where you're lendable, and buy a goddamn home. Why is everybody overcomplicating this shit? Don't get me wrong. You want to get into investing. You want to, purchase properties outside of a primary residency. Fine. It's debatable. But if you're renting a house, unless you're living with your mom and dad for free, what are we doing here? There's no timing the market. And I had somebody on today where we were looking at charts in regards to property values are already rebounding from the lull that we saw in January at the beginning of this year, which just so happens to be the lowest that we've seen purchase prices. Ultimately, if you were timing the market, guess what, audience? If you bought, no, I mean, you missed it. If you bought in January, you timed the market. Congratulations. If you can convince me that you knew January was as low as it was going to get, and you can show me a closing disclosure that you bought in January and you knew that buying in January was as good as it was going to get, I want you on the podcast because I want to know how the fuck you figured that out. Because we're already in an uptick. Don't get me wrong. It's not tremendous. It's not like property values are skyrocketing. But the last time we saw a downturn in the market, as soon as things turned, even though the increases were very, very minute, we didn't see a downturn for 12 years. 12 years. So if you didn't buy in January and you want to buy at the bottom of the barrel of the market, probably 12 years from now, maybe 10, if you're lucky. Still a good time to buy. But if you really wanted to say, I got it at the best time ever. And here's the thing. I can say this with confidence and razz these people because I'm looking in a rear view. It's easy to say when I can look at statistics in the past, right? But it's just interesting how many people can convince themselves they're going to time the market when even people like you and I who've been in this thing for years read charts every day, read articles every day, look at the statistics, are able to study the history, but somehow somebody else knows?
Yeah.
Get the fuck out
The
of
best
here.
part is the person who knows probably a 19-year-old TikToker. And that's who our clients are getting their information
Of course,
from.
just buy his course for $9,000.
Exactly. But this brings me into another topic, and it'll be the last topic before we bring on our special guest for another.
Because I've got
incredible
so many
topic.
questions for our special guest.
Okay, great. So last topic before we bring him on, and you already kind of touched on it. Recent report from Realtor.com, not associated with NAR that I know of.
Switching gears here.
They said that in a survey, 1/3 of hopeful homebuyers have decided to move back in with their parents in hopes of saving money.
I mean, listen, that is one of the debates that I've totally said, if you don't own a home right now, I would love to debate you on why there is no reason why you if you can afford to buy. Don't get me wrong. If you're like, I don't own a home because I'm broke. And okay, gotcha. You got me. And otherwise, that is one. And then the other one is I live with my mom and dad rent-free, or my aunt, or whoever is allowing you to live at their place rent-free. You got me there too. And I hope to God you're saving money because you have aspirations of home ownership. Because, yeah, free. There's nothing better than free.
Yeah. Well, so then it brings me to the opinion topic of, if you moved back in with your parents, are you actually saving money? Because chances are you're going and using that money someplace else.
Well, that's my point. I hope not, right? I mean, if you're moving back in with your parents, I hope it's with the intention of saving for a house.
Really hard.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have a housing expense, at least here in Austin, what's the average rent? $2,000, $2,200?
Probably 1,800-ish.
All right, 1,800, and even if you're splitting with a roommate, 900, right?
That's a lot, yeah.
I mean, even if you're renting like a 3-2 and you got 3 people, you're still at $700 a month roughly, or $600 a month?
Jared, who rents one bedroom of my house, is paying $1,300.
Okay. Well, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
give, the debatable benefit of the doubt here. If
Yeah.
even you've got yourself in a situation where you're living in a 3-bedroom house with 2 other people, just broing the fuck out, just the smells, man.
Dude, I bro out every day. It's awesome.
It's
We
like
cook ramen.
if you could save $600
I got
a
feral
month.
cats.
If you could save $600 a month, I mean, you're saving yourself $7,200 a year. You do that for 18 to 24 months, you got yourself your down payment as a first-time home buyer with 3% down. And I hope that's the reason you're doing it, because I cannot imagine being an adult, male or female. I won't even say 18. I'll say over the age of like 23. How in the world I can't stand to be around my parents for more than a day or two.
God bless my mom.
I love you, Mom and Dad.
And
I don't think you guys could handle me for more than a day or two anymore at this point.
exactly. Yeah, I think when I go back to Baton Rouge, for holidays and whatnot. I mean, obviously, being around my mom is wonderful. We watch Survivor every night and make our own ice cream in the ice cream machine. But I think she gets tired of me being there as well, because
She likes to have her privacy, her own space. I get it.
well, so another part of that, idea of
Statistic. Yep.
people moving back in with their parents, we're also seeing elderly people move in with their children at a faster rate.
Yeah.
We're also seeing a lot of new builders, especially like Lennar Homes, is now building every house with an additional mother-in-law suite or an ADU or something else connected to it.
I think that's a South thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, to be honest, I have like mixed emotions about it because again, culturally for me being from up north, that's not a thing. And I think a lot of it just has to do with the semantics of, the cold that I come from. It snowed yesterday in Cleveland, like 2 inches of snow.
That's horrible.
Right. That's where I'm from. And
You just got off the plane with that hat.
yeah, right. Well, fall edition, right? I think that, this is again, like I've never seen anything like that. Even in real estate, when I was doing it up there, you just don't see a lot of that. And I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that the cost that's associated with building like a back house, it has to be like below zero ready, which is a lot of additional cost. And then from there, if someone is walking to and from the other house, like there might be times that you're doing it in a foot of snow.
That's fair. No, I think it'd be really cool to have an ADU behind my house. That means the average home buyer can now also be an investor at the same time. It kind of gets our feet wet to the idea of investing.
What are your thoughts on the, all of the court or the town hall stuff that's going with the changes in regards to zoning and everything along those lines? Are you hip to that?
I am not hip to that.
Well, you have to be hip
You
to
started
that.
that question. I was like, damn.
Well, before we get into that, because there's some legalities to it, it
Mhm.
turns out we have an attorney in the room.
Yes.
And I want to talk about things like foreclosure laws. I want to talk about short sales.
I want to talk about NAR.
zoning. I want to talk about the National Association of Real Estate. And all 4 of those topics involve an attorney in some form or fashion. So without further ado, can we introduce the guest?
Yes, it's my friend Travis Hilton. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure I met him at a Y'all Out Boy concert. Was that right?
Well.
When did we meet?
Well, let's get him strapped in,
How do you
right?
get strapped in here? Alright, so what am I doing here? Putting headphones on?
You'll need those headphones on. You'll see just how much. I'll turn them around. Red for right. There you go.
Yeah.
I probably have my
What's
microphone.
going on with this guy?
Oh,
I
you just
turn
the
it
other
Oh,
way.
don't break him.
Other way.
Oh, no, like flip him inside out.
Oh,
Yeah.
never
There
mind.
you go.
So he's an attorney. He's also got his real estate license as well and does deals, right?
Yeah.
You're a resident of Schofield Farms, am I right?
I am. Yeah. How did you
A travel connoisseur.
Uh-huh.
And I believe you rode a scooter down the coast of Mexico at one point.
Yeah, I do a lot of pretty crazy adventures.
Let's get him a drink.
Yeah, please.
Well, yeah. Let's get him suited up. And while you're fixing up that drink, what topic do we want to start with? Well, no. Let's talk about what we were mentioning. Okay, the zoning.
Yeah.
So in Austin, if you own a home, which I know Chase you do, Travis, do you own a home?
I do. Very
So then
fortunate to
all
do so.
3 of us at this table may or may not be affected by the 3 things that they're trying to change in regards to zoning. So let me just go over the 3 and then maybe we can dissect all 3 of them in terms of how we feel about it and how it may help or hurt real estate in Austin. So the first one I know is that they are trying to reduce the lot size that is required in order to build a residency on. So I believe right now it's like something like 2 acres or something like that.
Sounds about right.
So if if you have like an eighth of an acre, you can build a house on it. And I believe they're trying to reduce that down to like 0.1. I'm not a big acre, math guy, but I just know that there are quite a few homes in Austin that would qualify to be able to subdivide. And from what I understand, real estate wise, that's sort of what you do, right? I mean, legally, you help if the house or if a lot needs to be subdivided, things like that. You handle the legalities behind it.
Yeah, so let me tell you a little bit about what it is that I've done and what it is that I currently do. So straight out of school, I worked at a private equity firm, and we did real estate development around Austin. So we developed a climbing gym, we developed an RV park, we did the entitlement work for probably 4 or 5 parcels of land around Austin. For any of the listeners not familiar with entitlement work, that is how do you get utilities to a site? How do you deal with any easements on the land? If there's a power line easement that goes over a piece of land, well, you're not allowed to build there because someone has the right to put a power line there. So we did a lot of the entitlement work for those parcels of land. There's a lot of money to be made in taking a piece of land that has some, quote, hair on it on the deal, and then getting rid of some of those problems and then marketing it with those problems fixed. So, for example, one of the things that I worked on was there was a flag-shaped lot in Bastrop that we bought. Flag-shaped meaning flag, there's a rectangle, flag pole, there's a little strip. That little strip was what was touching the frontage road. However, there was a drainage ditch easement that the state of Texas had on that piece of frontage road, so we couldn't actually build a driveway to get access to that big rectangle that we had in the past. So it is a huge pain in the ass to figure out how to purchase things like that. So if you have somebody that knows how to do that, i.e. a real estate attorney, you can then remove that channel easement so that you now unlock all of that value in that rectangle that you couldn't otherwise get to because you couldn't have built the driveway.
What do timelines on something like that look like?
That's a very good question. So a lot of people think, oh, well, I'll just hurry up and take care of this. It'll be no problem at all. Well, the number of people that you have to talk to in that process, it takes a long time for that process to get done. So my best guesstimate is a minimum of 6 months, maybe 12 or so.
That's not as bad as I thought.
It isn't so bad except that now you own that piece of land and you have no way to recuperate any money for that land that you've bought because you can't rent it out, you can't start your project.
So you're hemorrhaging until it's taken care of.
You are bleeding money until you fix that problem.
Took me 10 weeks to get a city permit to move plumbing 36 inches in my kitchen.
36 inches.
God, I can't imagine, a mile road.
Right.
That's tasty.
So we covered the number one thing in terms of what they're talking about changing in regards to, real estate in Austin, which is they're talking about reducing the lot size that you can build on.
Mm-hmm.
The second one that they're talking about changing is that they are talking about allowing up to on these said properties, you can obviously have one single family residency, but putting up to 2, as you put it, ADUs on it. So you can have 3 ultimately homes on one lot. And then the last one is that, and this was one that I actually had to look up because I didn't even know what it meant. They're talking about changing the laws in regards to how many unmarried adults you are allowed to have living in one home. So what I learned...
Are they enforcing that? They're not enforcing that. There's no little city planning guy that drives around counting the number of adults.
Well, I don't think anybody's...
Kind of reminds me of the Bible.
I don't think anybody's counting the number of adults, but let me, from a legality standpoint, and maybe you can help me with this, Travis. But so right now, if you have a 3-bedroom house, the way that it's been explained to me is you have a 3-bedroom house, only 6 adults can live in that house because you're allowed 2 adults per bedroom. Children don't count. So if you've got 6 adults in a house right now with, let's say, maybe 4 kids, you're good, right? Now, if I live next door to that house, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say that's a pretty rowdy house to live next door to.
I wouldn't want to live next to a 3-bedroom house with 10 people in it. No.
Correct.
Depends who the 10 people are.
But in the analogy that I've just provided, that is currently perfectly legal. However, if they were to increase these amounts of, adults that are allowed per bedroom, let's go from my analogy of 10 people, 6 adults and 4 children. Well, let's go ahead and just increase that number to, say, I don't know, people have hammocks in the garage and all of that. And let's go with 8 adults and 6 children in a 3-2 house. And you live in that neighborhood. Now, I know that there's no police or whatever going around and saying, hey, wait a second, let me see how many people are in your property. But if I lived next door to that property and this is creating a major issue, I mean, think about the cars, think about the potential, let's just also say they've got a couple dogs. Like, there's got to be somebody that I can call and go, this is a problem, right? And I'm not saying that, that it is already a problem, but that to me was like, when I heard that one, I was like, what why? And so I had it, the reduction of the property value one, okay, like, I don't know if we need to stack people on top of people any more than we already have, but fine. And then the other one of, the multiple ADUs, because the thing that kind of concerned me was it also counts for RVs. So you could buy a lot in Austin, maybe even a teardown. Let's just say you find a property that's, 2 miles from the city, maybe even 1 mile from the city, right off on First Street, and you buy a teardown for $250,000 between you and your 3 friends, and you guys all have wives, and you park 3 RVs right on that property, you would be well within your legal right to do that. Now, I'm a property owner in Austin, Texas, and I don't know if that is the type of community that sounds exciting to me as a property owner, and I don't know what that's going to do to my value.
I have a very strong HOA.
Yeah,
So
but
never pass.
But it's not going to be next door, but it could be a block away. And so for me, I feel very torn, because the first thing I don't like is I'm never about telling people what they can or can't do on their land, right?
Very libertarian of you.
Yeah. I mean, do we really need to implement more laws to tell people what they can or can't do? I don't know if that's necessarily something that I can back. And then I also am kind of weird about, like, we already have laws and we want to amend these laws. Like, why do they exist in the first place? Clearly, there has to be a reason why you can't have 8 adults, 4 children, and 3 dogs in a 3-bed, 2-bath house. So this has to have happened at one point in time.
Must have.
I just sold, well, I say just. I haven't sold anything in a while, guys. Back in, July, I sold a 9-bedroom house. And the way I was promoting this to everyone, I was like, have your own co-living space, have a whole frat house.
You could have had 18 adults in that house.
And the previous tenants had 16 kids. But that house was built as a 4-bedroom house, and they turned it into a 9-bedroom house. Like, I wonder if there's some, I guess
Kids don't count.
they had to get city permitting for that to be able to expand that house. But
Did they build it up or out?
kind of both. It was like a 2-story house, and they kind of built it out on the roof, and then kind of converted a garage space.
Okay, neat.
Converted some attic space. The house is disgusting.
Of course it was. Of course it was.
But
you can't live with that many people in one place.
But the neighbors didn't sign up for that. Like the city permitting allowed them to build it out, a couple of years ago. But the neighbors are like, man, I didn't want to live across from the orphanage. Because these were 16 foster kids. They weren't biological children. And so then I sold this house to a family that had 9 kids. I'm like, certainly there's got to be one in town. I mean, I got to the point where I was about to start handing out flyers outside of Mormon churches. But we ended up with a blended family where the husband had 2 kids and the wife had 7. And they were the perfect occupants for this. But one day their kids might want to continue living in the house. And now we got, 13 adults? Because they also had, the grandparents living there, too. And these poor neighbors who are across the street and next door have to look at all these cars.
So, Travis, you deal with a lot of bureaucracy in your work, I would envision, right?
Absolutely.
So what do you think, from somebody who's qualified to speak about residential and, just basically real estate bureaucracy, what do you think the reasoning is behind some of the changes that they're talking about making. Like, from my experience, most agencies that are working for, cities and stuff like that, as much as there is some things done to help citizens and whatnot, from my experience, it typically becomes like, how can we profit off of this? I could be wrong. What do you think the bureaucracy behind reducing plots for purchase sizes, increasing the amount of ADUs and, what do they call them, RVs that can be put on pieces of land, and allowing for more adults in homes? What would you? You can only speculate.
I can only speculate. I think it's been the citizens of Austin have cried out for a long time for the affordability problem here in Austin. It's expensive to live here, especially as compared to the rest of Texas and many other parts of the country. So people have been complaining about affordability for a long time, and kind of there's two ways to do it. You can either increase supply or you can relax, these kind of rules. The city can give out more building permits, but there are rules that still have to be followed. There's only so much land. Lumber's very expensive right now. It's hard to find people to build. You can't really build up in a lot of ways. You'd have to keep building out further and further and further. The city then has to pay for more roads. It's hard to get utilities out to all of those different developments. So if people are clamoring for cheaper housing, it seems like one of the easier ways for the city to allow that, or to accomplish that goal, is to allow people to do ADUs in their backyard, park some RVs on their land. I hope that there's not 1,000 adults living in a 3-bedroom house. That seems like a disaster. I don't know how often that really happens, but that's probably the answer to your question, is that's the only way that the city is feeling like they can tackle the affordability problem.
So they're just trying to create relief for a problem that people have been complaining about. But is it possible that this might be a short-term solution for a long-term problem? You deal with zoning, you deal with these things, and you've got way more experience. I'm literally asking. I would envision, like, you relax laws, it's hard to overturn things, right? And now you open the floodgates to allowing for tighter spaces and things of that nature. I think for me, the crazy part, the one that I can totally get behind, it's like, fine, if you want to stack houses on top of houses and reduce the lot sizes that are required to maybe like build a stick-built structure, I can kind of get behind that. But like increasing the amount of motorized living spaces that you can park on your property, I don't know, man. Seems weird.
That's a weird one.
Yeah.
It's a very formal name for an RV, a motorized living space.
Well, that's what it is. It
sounds beautiful.
Well,
I would love to live in
the
one.
reason I say motorized living space is because an RV, in my opinion, is something that you use to like vacation in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're living in an RV to me is different than like vacationing in an RV.
I'll tell you, so this might be the perfect place to say this idea. I've had this idea for a long time. All right. So it has to do with RVs and housing. So
I've got to take this hat off. I'm sorry.
Hypothetically, one day.
He's bald.
Turns out
I'm bald. All right, Travis, do your thing.
So hypothetically, one day, whenever we solve autonomous driving and whenever we can figure out electric vehicles to be really cheap and easy to run, what would stop someone from just living in an RV and having it just drive around the city until it finds a place to park, and then it can't find and then it's not allowed to park there anymore, then it just keeps driving around. The guy living in his RV that just permanently drives around.
I feel like that already exists.
I have a friend that lives outside of multiple different Planet Fitnesses.
No way.
Yeah, and he lives in a van, and it's not even an RV, it's just a van. I'm sure it's a lot more cozy in wintertime than it is in summertime. But yeah, he uses Planet Fitness for their showers. He's a Black Card member. I'm sure he doesn't flaunt that because he lives in a van. But
you got a tanning package then?
Yeah. So he gets a tan. He gets the spa treatment. But yeah, he lives in their parking lots.
He's figured it out.
Because Planet Fitness is always in like a strip center where you
24 hours.
You don't really know who's parking where.
Yeah.
So they don't even need an autonomous vehicle to drive. They can. Now that would be a nice sleep. An
Somebody,
autonomous
yeah, it's
vehicle.
just driving you around all the time.
God, it's like sleeping on a plane.
I mean,
or a
it's
train.
examples like that where I know people that do things like that, and they kind of act as though they've like figured it out, and that we're slaves to the whole system and whatever. Like we are slaves to the whole system, and they've like cracked the code and live outside the matrix. And I just that stuff kind of irks me at times because it's like the only way that any of this is possible is because of the like slaves of the system. And yeah, I just don't know why people. I like rules, man. I guess I just like rules.
I'm running for the board of directors at my HOA.
Really?
Because here's the thing. I hated it so much because I wanted to build a simple pergola, and it took them 90 days to give me an answer on it.
Pergola? What is a pergola?
You'd
don't
be
know what a
surprised how
pergola
many
is?
people don't know what a pergola
I know what
is.
a pergola
Yeah,
is.
so basically it's a little wood structure that goes over your patio
Yeah.
just to provide some extra shade.
So it's not a patio because if it was a patio, it would have a roof.
Mm-hmm.
So a pergola is like where you
Well, it's not
you can
covered,
connect it
but-
to your house, and it's got like the 2x8s that are this way.
Oh, yeah.
Minus a shade sail.
If you put a roof on it, it would be like a patio cover or like an on, like whatever you want to call that.
So mine has a little shade sail for that. But yeah, so it took them 90 days to give me approval. And I was like, you know what? I can run this HOA better than these dinosaurs that are doing it right now. So anyway, now I'm running a very grassroots campaign.
Well, that sounds fun. You ready for that? I mean, you ready to deal with those people?
Deal with bureaucracy. Here we go.
You're gonna deal
I'm not
with-
going to be the president. There's 5 seats open. And
Here's a good
3
one
people
for Market
running.
on the Rocks. So we all know what a Karen is.
Yes.
What's a male Karen?
Well, did you know how they got the name Karen first?
Yeah, wasn't it like a viral video of a woman like freaking out?
Oh, I thought no, I heard it's because they be caring about things that aren't their problem.
Oh, is that right? I thought it was like a viral that you could be right. Comment below if you know where the word Karen came from. But I've been asking people if Karen is we know what Karen is. What's a male Karen?
We have Chads.
I've heard
but
Chad.
that's not a Karen.
I've heard Carl. Like, who would Karen be married to?
Eric.
I've heard Kyle. Karen and Kyle.
No, but Kyle is.
We gotta
is
come up
like
with an official.
the gym rat.
Okay. We got to come up with who is the official male Karen. I know they say male Karen, but we got to give him a name.
Well, y'all work on that.
We will. We will. So moving on to my next legal topic that I want to get Travis involved
That's
in.
an important one.
A lot of people have been, reaching out to me because of the market and everything, and everybody's really excited about the possibility of getting like a short sale or a foreclosure and all that kind of stuff because, unbeknownst to them, society just believes if it's a foreclosure or a short sale that automatically it's a deal.
It's free.
It's free. It's free. I would envision, and correct me if I'm wrong because we just met. I mean, do you deal with real estate in regards to anything pertaining to short sales or foreclosures at all?
Yeah, absolutely. If y'all ever go to the foreclosure auctions, the tax sales every month,
You told me about this, and it sounds fun.
dude, it is so funny. There's probably 15, 20 people that show up every month. Different group of people every month, but there's always at least 5 to 7 guys. They're not supposed to collude legally, but they're like a pitcher and catcher, like a pitcher and catcher in baseball. Like they're throwing signals to each other, like
Show me
you
how
bid
it's
on
done.
this one, I'm not gonna bid on this one. You can have it, I don't want it. And like they are absolutely colluding, and they really do not want anyone else to play in their game. It's so fun to watch. But yes, I do a lot of the foreclosures, and yeah, it's funny. You think people always think, oh, foreclosure, basically it's free. No, you're getting a $500,000 house for about $400,000, and then you have to go through the process of evicting that person.
Do you help with that process?
I do, yeah. It's a pain.
What's that? Yeah, well, please unpack it so that everyone out there who thinks that they've created a life hack for themselves. Number one, I'm going to ask you some questions so that you can just answer it. Number one, if you're buying a foreclosure, can we finance that?
No,
Why not?
because you got to show up with a cashier's check.
No, that's not right. Can you finance it?
I've never heard of anyone financing it. You do have to pay the same day. If you could find some way to get money,
And it would have to be a hard money loan, not
and
collateral.
it would have to be a hard money loan. and no formal bank like that is gonna lend you money, package that mortgage, and sell it off to Fannie Mae, Freddie. Yeah,
And do you know why?
because it's pretty risky.
No, that is not why.
Why not?
The reason why is because as an attorney, you know this. I know you know the answer.
Okay.
Is because the one thing that we need as a lender is we need an appraisal.
Oh, well, that as well.
And guess what we can't get access to?
The house.
Yeah, so you don't have any idea if somebody flushed concrete down the toilets because they're mad at their bank. You have no idea. So, yeah, you can't get an appraisal
So we can't get access to the property. Why?
because there's somebody living in it,
That's right. And they don't want to leave.
and they don't want to leave.
And that's where you come in.
And that's where I come in. Yeah, so a lot of people think that, oh, I bought this $500,000 house for $400,000. Well, hooray, I profited for $100. Well, no, not really.
Not till you open that fucker up after you go through the foreclosure proceeding.
Exactly, and it's going to cost you time and money to.
Can you give us a roundabout in regards to the money side of it and what it costs to
the
evict
money
a
side? I
client?
mean, if you hire an attorney to get somebody evicted, it could easily, I don't know, $5,000 to $15,000 to get that process completed, and it's going to take a while because
And we've got to pay you for that, right?
correct. I am hourly.
Right. It's not like, hey, you know, after I sell this house and everything, like, I got you, brother. Like, get these people out. I promise.
Nope, you are going to write me a check for a retainer, and if I burn through that cash, then I stop working.
Right. You hear that? You hear that, everybody? Because I get this. I've been getting. It's like I've been doing this long enough. I've seen the waves of like, I'm going to buy a foreclosure. I'm like, really? Well, why are you on the phone with me? Because I can't finance your foreclosure.
Yeah, it's a difficult process. It's a fun nut to crack if you can do it, but it is not easy, and it is very, very risky. Some people make a lot of money doing it, but it is very risky. Like I said, you don't know if somebody has flushed concrete down the toilets, and now you have.
Is that a common
Okay,
thing?
see, I've never heard of that, and that
So I
scares
used
the
to-
shit out of me.
So my mom's a real estate broker back in College Station, where I'm from, and we did a lot of real estate owned REO properties,
Yeah.
foreclosure properties basically. And I dealt with this all the time. People would just trash the house, and you had to deal with it, and it's just.
The one I hear a lot of is, so I have a buddy back in Cleveland who does this, and you know, it's like it literally is like buying these storage facilities. You don't
You
know
have
what's
no
in them.
idea.
You have no idea what you're getting into. You know what this house should be worth if it's in reasonable condition. And sometimes once you go through the eviction process, you open it up and you're like, holy shit, we won the lottery, right? Kind of like that dream that you hear because everybody talks about their wins. They never talk about their losses. So everyone thinks a foreclosure is this great idea. But I've heard things about feces on the wall. I've heard things about spray painting things too, because they're normally, from what I understand, most of them are rental properties, and the people who are actually living in them are not the, you know, they're not the owners,
A lot of times, yeah.
so they don't give a shit. And the eviction process, even for somebody who's renting, is similar to someone who owns. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like it's not
You got to
like
get a writ of possession from the judge, and I mean, the constable will go out and kick them out.
right. And so I've heard, you know, poop stories. I've heard the most common one is like all of the kitchen countertops, cabinets, if they're in relatively decent shape. I mean, you can sell those. They can be used for other rental properties. You open up a property, it's gutted. There is no countertops. There are no toilets. There are no
Copper
vanities, copper pipes, electrical wire, which is also copper. The entire house is nothing but a shell. And you just bought this property for what you thought was $100,000 under, and it is literally just 4 walls and a roof.
That still sounds better than concrete in the plumbing.
I'll tell you another funny story. This is
I don't
not-
even know how you fix that.
I don't know who
Like,
thought of that. That if I was really trying to fucking piss
disaster.
somebody
So
off,
believe it or
man.
not, I was building a pergola last week, and I had to drill 4 holes for my mounting brackets in my patio.
Well, you need a carbine drill bit.
Yeah, I was using my, Ryobi
No,
battery-powered drill. That took 7 hours to drill 1 hole.
You could have drilled 1 hole in 15 seconds if you spent $15 on the right bit.
Yeah, I went to Home Depot 3 times. I didn't find that bit.
Yeah, it's
Regardless,
Go-
if there's
go on.
concrete in my plumbing,
Tell you where it is
what the
next
hell
time.
am I doing?
yeah.
I-
You're installing new
saving
plumbing.
me?
That's what you're doing.
That's insane.
Pretty much, yeah. I'll tell you another funny story. This is not a foreclosure story, but it's a similar like vandalism story. Husband and wife get a divorce. Last night, husband wins the house in the divorce. He didn't win. I'm sure he paid a different way, but he won the house in the divorce. The last night that the wife is in the house, she goes out and she has seafood. She comes home with her leftovers, and then unscrews the ends of the curtain rods, puts her shrimp or fish or whatever in the curtain rods, and then screws it back on and then leaves. Well, that house stank. Surprise.
Yeah, shocker.
Yeah, shocker. And then the husband spent a fortune trying to figure out where that smell was coming from. Could not find it. Could not sell it for a song. Finally, he did sell it. Huge amount of money under. Who do you think bought it? The ex-wife, who then promptly replaced the curtain rods and had a nice home.
Oh my God.
Badass.
I feel like I have to cut that out, man.
I
So-
love when women know how to install curtain rods.
So here's another one I've got for you, because I have to deal with all of the, TikTokers that are trying to figure out some sort of hack. How do I phrase this to where I can make it easy for you to answer? Do you find in your line of work that you run into a lot of just bullshit people that are like, hey, here's my plan, here's what I'm thinking, and you're like, dude, not only did half of what you just described is completely illegal, but the other half is totally unpractical.
Yes. Yeah, that happens quite a bit.
So if you had 10 people, like what percentage do you feel of the people that come to you who think they've figured out some sort of money idea that no one else has thought of in the,
Well, I do a lot of commercial real estate, so I imagine we
Okay.
do a very different type of. I imagine we have slightly different types of people that are like this. But yeah, there's plenty of people that come to me with the same stuff. Oh, I'm going to buy this shopping center and I'm going to gut it and turn it into a movie theater. I think, okay, yeah, but you don't have the permits for that. You're not going to be allowed to do that. Yeah, I don't need the permits. Yeah, you do. I mean, you can't get away with that. It's not going to work. Oh, but what if I get a hard money loan? It'll be great. I'm going to. They're basically, the amount of times that people have come to me with a story with a business plan that involves robbing Peter to pay Paul, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. It's crazy what people think that they can get away with and that it's going to work.
do we blame that on the internet?
I
Yes.
don't know, but developing a business plan on a Ponzi scheme is not usually the best way to do it.
Well,
Chasing
obviously.
Realty is now out of business.
So we talked about the unpracticalness. You've basically covered that. What would you say? And again, if you don't know the answer, you can say it. But what would you say is the most common thing that you run into as an attorney that people present to you that you immediately have to say that is illegal?
Well, Hilton and Associates, please give me a call. My job is oftentimes not to tell people that is illegal. My job is often, the way that I best serve my clients is to tell them how they can do it legally. Or to, how to do it legally. So for example, a client of mine came to me and said, hey, I have this tree, it's blocking the ability for me to build. It's a heritage tree. I'm not sure if any of our listeners know about the tree regulations here in Austin. They're very difficult as compared to the rest of Texas. But if a tree is too big or too special, you cannot cut it down. Or if you do cut it down, it is going to cost a fortune to do tree remediation. So if someone comes to me with a problem tree, one of the solutions is the city allows you to cut back, I think it's 25 to 30% of the canopy per year. And if you do that for 3 years in a row, the tree will die. You have broken no laws, and now the tree is dead.
Okay.
So my
So-
job is to tell people how to do it legally.
Well, that is legal, right? And
It is part of the rules.
So-
However, you had now spent 3 years, and that's a little difficult.
So would you say that is like the number one thing that people might ask you, that you will say, listen, if you like completely call a guy that looks like me, hang on. If you call a guy that looks like me to chop down your heritage tree and you don't do it the right way, that is illegal. Would you say that's the number one thing that you get where you're like, don't do that? Or are there other things that people are like, I have an idea, and you're like, you can't do that? Is there anything else that comes to mind?
That's pretty common. The trees are a pretty common one. Financing, creative financing is always a fun one.
Oh, I love that word.
Doing rehab rehab work on a property, you do have to get the permits. A lot of people will like hide a dumpster or like put paper on the windows so that the little city guy driving by doesn't see that you're remodeling a property. But trees are a pretty common one.
You see people getting busted on that, or do you see people just asking and then kind of going about it the way that you just described? I mean, maybe that's my next question. What is the number one thing that you see people doing real estate related that puts them in a predicament legally?
Legally?
We've talked about trees. We've talked about doing things without permits. Maybe here's a better question. What is the most expensive thing that you should not be doing in real estate that we would have to eventually call you when it might be too late? Because I'm sure you get a lot of calls and it's too late.
Yeah, I read an interesting book about a divorce lawyer, and I think the title of the book was "If You're in My Office, It's Probably Too Late." And there's probably a lot of parallels to that with my business.
Life, I think.
With
Doctors
life.
would say the same thing.
Yeah, if you're in my office, it's probably too late. There's a lot of easy ways to screw up a real estate deal. A lot of times people buy something thinking that it's going to be easy to do, and then they don't realize the pursuit costs, the timing, the holding costs. Because like I said, for the easement example that I gave earlier on the podcast, I mean, that's 6 to 9 months of dealing with that, and that's 6 to 9 months of no rental income. Well, if your little spreadsheet didn't include 6 to 9 months of zeros,
not even,
bleeding
it's not
cash.
zeros. It's worse than zeros.
Mhm.
You're paying
Accruing
taxes at the
interest,
very
yeah.
least.
Exactly.
And if you have a loan, you're accruing interest. So there is no such thing as zero when you buy real estate. I mean, let's also talk about that. There is no such thing as any form of real estate that is completely free.
Mhm.
Even if you own raw land, you don't have to insure it. You don't have a mortgage maybe, but you're always paying taxes. You are always hemorrhaging cash on a property no matter what,
Mhm.
Yeah.
unless you're a Native American.
Okay.
Well, isn't there land in the United States that individuals own and don't pay taxes on?
I have some clients, and maybe you could figure this out for me. I'm not sure what country they're from. I want to say it's like the Dominican Republic or something, but the guy insists that he doesn't pay taxes because he's an immigrant. I'm not sure what he's doing.
You remember how you asked me expensive things that people... It feels like one of those.
That feels like one of them. So, without disclosing any names of any individuals, what is the most expensive? This is the market on. What's the most expensive fuck up that you've seen in real estate?
$70 million.
And
Jesus.
like, 70 million. And how did that happen?
They inflated their commissions.
What did they do? What did they do wrong?
I cannot get into it because
Okay.
it might disclose some parties, but it was
Fair
a
enough.
huge fuck up. Yeah, and God bless them. They tried. They tried so hard.
Is this
and
a company or an individual?
It's a company. No,
Oh.
no, it's not an individual that individually owes $70 million. No, it's a company. It was a development project in North Austin. A pretty big project. Yeah, they screwed up pretty hard.
Wow.
That would bankrupt me.
Well, staying.
Believe it or not.
Really, 70 million? Chump change.
Yeah. My trust fund is not that big.
So moving on, but staying in the legal realm, I know that one thing you really wanted to unpack was the lawsuit against the National
what's
Association
going
of
on with that?
Realtors.
Yeah. You
wanna-
haven't heard about it?
I read a little bit about it. Yes, of course I've heard
I
about
was
it.
like, Matt's going to unpack it a lot better than I will anyway.
Yeah, I will say that I know quite a bit about it, not only for my own business, but because I try to stay on top of it because it's got a lot of real estate agents a little skittish about what how it's going to affect their business. And so I believe it was on Monday. The jury in the lawsuit went ahead and basically said that they felt that they ruled on the side of the plaintiffs who were suing because so there's a couple different points. So let's start with the first one. This is one of my least favorite things about any of these lawsuits that happen with real estate. It really frustrates me when the general public claims ignorance to certain situations. They feel like, oh, we didn't understand what was going on, but they've got a multiple page contract with everything that outlines everything in black and white. But it also explicitly states that, hey, you know, these real estate agents that are explaining these contracts to you, they're not attorneys. And if you are really concerned about the decks and bylaws, if you will, of what is in this real estate contract, you should consult an attorney. It's in there. So, you know, in 2008, when we in my industry saw a big change through Dodd-Frank, which was something that came through from the federal government, the reason why a lot of people were able to get out of foreclosures and were even to do loan modifications was because it was like a collective group of what I would call like water cooler talk, where everybody was just like, just say you didn't know what you were doing when you signed your documentation. And that really irritates me, because I believe in this day and age, like, if you are really concerned, I'll be the first to admit I sign on terms and conditions on downloading applications on my phone and,
Sure.
you know, Netflix and all of these things. Where do I read every single piece of the terms and
No, you
conditions?
don't.
No. But if there's a gotcha moment where somebody were to say, hey, you know, this is, you know, take a lease, for example, you know, you go to cancel a lease and they're like, you were supposed to give us 60 days notice. I can't just say, well, I didn't know, so I'm not on the hook for those last 60 days. I'm moving, right? Like, it's your responsibility as a human being to, you know, make sure you know what you're signing. And if you don't want to do the legwork on it, hire a guy like Travis. He'll read through your contract and let you know if there's anything you should be weary of. So this whole lawsuit is based on sellers that ultimately are arguing that they did not know that the commissions that they were paying were negotiable, number one. They are claiming that they were told that these commissions were set by the National Association of Realtors, and we'll just use the number of 6%, that was an industry standard that was ultimately dictated by the real estate community and was an ironclad almost law. That was their first argument. The second argument, which in my opinion from a legality standpoint, and I'm not an attorney, I have to give that disclaimer, I think is pretty damning on paper, where the argument is that listing agents, they negotiate the commissions on not only what they're going to receive when the transaction closes, but they're also negotiating the buy-side commission for the real estate agent that is going to be representing the buyer. So the argument is that if I am negotiating the commission of a buyer's agent, even though that buyer's agent I don't know, I don't have a relationship with, but I'm still negotiating on their behalf, it's pretty damning and difficult to argue that me and that buyer's agent don't have some sort of relationship, right? So the debate is that if a buyer's agent's commission is negotiated by the seller, how are they not on the same team? And if they are on the same team, then the whole idea of fiduciary responsibility between a buyer's agent and a seller's agent really is kind of bullshit, because that seller's agent negotiated my commission. Now, we all know that buyer's agents, in my opinion, and every transaction I've ever seen, absolutely represent the buyer, and seller's agents absolutely represent the seller. But nobody works for free. And for the record, profit is not a dirty word. But if you've negotiated my commission, is it debatable that I work for you?
That's an interesting argument.
It sure is. Well, according to a jury of our peers in Kansas City, Missouri, they felt like that is a conflict of interest. So so none of the, a judge hasn't ruled yet, but what the fear is that buyer's agents now are going to be held responsible in giving explanation to buyers on what the charges are that they are going to have to ultimately pay, whether it's baked into the loan amount, whether it's paid in cash. They're going to be required now to explain this situation in more detail, similar to how I just described it, instead of telling buyers, well, I don't, you as a buyer don't have to pay a commission to me. The commission is paid for by the seller. That's probably going to go away.
Is that a bad thing?
I don't think so.
Okay.
What I actually think now I'll take off my, these are the facts hat and say, in my personal opinion, I think it's good that buyers should negotiate their commissions. I mean, hypothetically, they are negotiating for you on the purchase of your property, and their negotiating skills should absolutely be put to the test. And if you can't negotiate your commission as a buyer's agent, why in the world would I want you negotiating for me on the purchase price of my property?
Yeah.
So those are the two things that were, a big deal. I mean, there's arguments, and this is another one going to the other side, playing devil's advocate here, that kind of made me raise an eyebrow. Was real estate agents are paid too much. I mean, too much in comparison to what?
We are when we get paid.
Right. And well, and how much is too much, right? And like what goes into that transaction? And this is a marathon career, not a sprint, right? I mean, you as an attorney, people would argue that attorneys are paid too much, right?
We are worth every dollar.
Listen.
If you ever have a legal question, it is so worth paying an initial consultation. Don't go to an attorney that does a free consultation. He won't give you good advice. He or she won't give you good advice, or they will only give you 80% of the information that you need to know so that you hire them, so that then they will give you the extra 20%. Usually that $200 to $500 an hour that you spend is money very well spent.
I would agree. But the point is that I think that most consumers who are purchasing anything feel like whatever it is, whether it's a bottle of beer all the way up to a commercial real estate property, I very, very seldomly find that anybody is like, oh yeah, I got the best deal. Like everybody feels like things are just inflated no matter what, right? Unless there's value attached to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that what this lawsuit is going to require is additional disclosures, very similar to what happened in 2009 with Dodd-Frank. And I think it's going to require that buyer's agents are going to really have to pitch their value. And one of my things that I am a little excited about in regards to, I don't like to say I told you so, but I'm going to say it. Real estate agents that know me really, really well, you and I have only known each other for a year. For the last 6 years, I have been very, very adamant. I've even run sales courses on the importance and the ability to get an exclusive buyer's agreement signed.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many agents have looked at me like I have two heads when I try to explain to them not only the legality of an exclusive buyer's agreement, but also the importance. And they look at it like, that's too salesy for me. I'm going to lose the deal if somebody, if I press on them and say, hey, here's what the purchase process looks like. Here's how everything is. And I need you to sign this exclusive buyer's agreement that states that I'm going to be your real estate agent. Here's the amount of commission that I collect on the buy side once the home is sold. I like to call them closing costs, as we do in our business, because they aren't fees. A fee is what you charge. Mm-hmm. You charge a fee. Regardless of the outcome, there is a fee associated with it. You're going to get paid. Mm-hmm. In real estate, we don't get paid until the deal closes. Hence, it's a closing cost. And I think it's important to maintain those different definitions. You're an attorney. You respect definitions.
Oh, absolutely. We slice and dice words to the very end. Yeah.
So we charge closing costs, not fees. You could charge fees, I guess. You talked about.
Have you ever heard of that? Have you ever heard of an agent that just works on an hourly basis?
I love the idea, and I might start doing it.
I don't, but what I do know is I am very, very familiar, and I do know agents that are very, very good at getting exclusive buyer's agreements signed. And so just to give a little bit of what I would call my training course in regards to exclusive buyer's agreements, one of the things that I like to do in a sales environment is I like to measure the amount of, people always want to measure the amount of closings that they have, right? How much business did you close this year? But we all know that closings start somewhere, right? And some would argue, like, how many clients did you talk to? How many phone calls did you make, right? Like, we all have certain metrics. My favorite one, if I were a real estate agent, would be how many listing contracts did I get signed this week? And how many exclusive buyer's agreements did I get signed this week? And the very first thing that I tell agents to do for this exercise is I tell them, call your close friends, call your mom, call your dad, and run a presentation on them and have them sign an exclusive buyer's agreement. And people say to me, Matt, that's ridiculous. Like, my mom's not buying a house anytime soon. Great. It's a 1-year contract. Make her sign it. Now she is your exclusive buyer in the event that she purchases a home in the next 12 months. So you do your buyer's presentation, you practice it, you pitch your value, and then at the end of it, you go, okay, Mom, you would use me as a real estate agent once, this is all said and done. And Mom's going to be a little easier. You're going to slide that exclusive buyer's contract, and she's going to sign it, and she's going to smile, and we're all going to laugh because Mom's not buying a home in the next 12 months. Do it to your friend. do it to your cousin. Do it to the next, do it to everybody and get better at it. And you're going to find your buddy who's going to go, Chase, this is, I'm doing this to help you out, but I have zero desire to buy a home in the next year. In fact, I own a home. I'm not going anywhere. We just bought a home. You're like, then this shouldn't be a problem to sign and handle those objections, right? And so now you can look at your metrics and say, how many exclusive buyer's contracts did I get signed this week? And how many listing contracts did I get signed this week? And I feel like that is a fantastic exercise and metrics, because what you're going to find, and I've seen this, and I've talked to agents and coached agents on doing this, I guarantee you, if you get 10 exclusive buyers contracts signed in 1 month with 10 buyers that claim that they're not going to buy a home in the next year,
Somebody will.
Somebody will, because you're going to implore them to dabble with the concept of maybe buying a home in the next 12 years or 12 months.
Why would someone sign that if they're not interested in buying a home?
Why? For the same reason that they wouldn't, because it's in the land of make believe.
Yeah, but anybody, even the dumbest of dummies in our society, knows not to put their name on a piece of paper. That seems like a very negative free roll concept of, I'm going to give you my name on a piece of paper. I'm going to sign this exclusive buyer's agreement. Yeah, that seems.
I love that you're pushing back on this, because this is great, and I'll explain why. So let's talk about you and I just met, but let's just, for sake of argument, pretend that you and I went to college together. We've known each other for 6 years now, and we've had multiple conversations over the years. You bought your house, well before we met. You live in a house. You've got a wife. You've got kids. You're not going anywhere. And we've had conversations in the past where I'm like, hey, Travis, if you ever buy a home, let me be your real estate agent. I want to help you out. You've seen me do closings because I'm your buddy. You've actually had beers in circles where other people are like, Matt, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You were the best real estate agent ever. And so your conviction for my work it's there, right? So hypothetically, if I'm your buddy and we've known each other forever, and I'm like, Travis, in the next 12 months, if you buy a house, will you use me as your real estate agent? Yes or no? I mean, it's a yes or no answer, right? And if you're like, Matt, of course, like, I'm absolutely going to use you as your agent. I'm like, then what is the issue with you committing to me right now in the next 12 months to be your real estate agent? It doesn't cost you anything. The only cost that's associated with it is if you buy a home in the next 12 months, I'm going to be the guy that you're going to work with, and I'm going to get the commissions.
How enforceable have you seen these agreements?
So the way that they're enforceable is like this. I love this. The way that they are enforceable as such. So number one, let's start with this part. If you were, this is what I would do as a real estate agent. If you were to call me and say, Matt, turns out I'm going to buy a home, and I ended up meeting this other guy, and truth is I just like him better. I think he's better than you. I think he's a better agent. Yeah, I like it, whatever. You know what? Turns out my wife is requiring that we use her brother, who just got licensed last month. Yeah. And if I don't use her brother, I'm fucking going to be in the doghouse. Any real estate agent is going to, first and foremost, have a conversation and try to say, look, like, you should use me. And what I love about this is that it gives me an opportunity to have a conversation with you where you might have just gone behind my back, bought a house, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, that's just nice that they gave you the heads up.
Right. So they're not, well, you have to legally give me the heads up. And I can go ahead and say, you know what? Don't worry about it. I get it. I don't want you in the doghouse. You're my homie. Like, I know your wife and I love her, but man, she's going to fucking kill you if you don't use her brother. I don't have to enforce it. But the enforceability comes from procuring clause where, hypothetically, if you were to go behind my back in that 12-month time frame and purchase a property, it doesn't affect you. What I'm able to do is I'm able to go to the Board of Real Estate now, and I'm able to come after a portion of the commission of, in this analogy, your brother-in-law.
Gotcha. Okay.
So now I'm going to get paid because you committed to being my buyer. It doesn't cost you anything necessarily. I can't sue you for it. What's on the table is the money that was made in the purchase of the contract. And I know 2 times that this has happened, and typically it's usually, depending on how much you can present to a judge in regards to how much work you've done, if you've shown houses, oh man, you're getting 50% of that commission, and you didn't even have to deal with it. Yeah, you might have a tougher time if it's like, all we got was this. Here's my friend of mine. You know, just like any lawsuit. I mean, we're going to settle out of court, right? No one's getting fined. No one's going to jail. But there's a dollar figure on the table here. And if I have an exclusive buyer's agreement that you were going to purchase with me in the next 12 months and you utilized another agent, I'm coming after a piece of that commission.
So what's the average commission that you're dealing with here in Austin?
As a real estate agent?
Yeah.
On the buy side?
So it's
I'd say at least 10 to 15,000.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'd say 15K.
Okay, 15,000. Let's say you get half of that. So now your potential money to recover is $7,500. How many hours are you going to have to spend going after that $7,500?
Well, this is the beauty of the National Association of Real Estate is that you are already protected.
Okay.
And so
they're going to fight for that $7,500 for you?
That's what you pay into as far as being
They can't fight for anything else.
well, that's what you pay into, and you're in a club now, right? Which is going to bring me to the next part of this lawsuit. God, this is working out very well. So you're in a club now, right? Because, you know, we're not real estate agents, we're realtors, right?
Trademarked.
Correct. And so we're all in an exclusive club that abides by the same rules. That's why the buyer isn't on the hook for the cost of what's associated with it. It's the commission that's in there. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the National Association of Realtors can go after your commissions and stuff like that, right? If you do things unethical and
Sure.
Right. So that to your point, like I don't even think that now I could be wrong on this part, but I have a gentleman that has done this. I don't even think that this is something you need to seek legal counsel for. It's not. It's like you just go to the board and you say, "Hey, here's my documentation. Here's where it is. Like this was done, you know, wrong, whatever have you." Because it is the responsibility in this example for your brother-in-law to flat out ask you, "Have you signed any exclusive buyer's agreements that would create any issues?" And if you're like, yeah, and he sells you this home, he needs to know, or he needs to be aware of.
What if he can prove he was unaware?
Well, that goes to the lawsuit. I mean, this is ignorance, right? And we know that ignorance of the law is still breaking the law.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that is a criminal law.
I mean, if
context.
I mean, if I leave here, so here's a non-criminal offense. If I leave here right now and I drive down William Cannon going 65 miles an hour and a cop pulls me over, allegedly, and a cop pulls me over and says, "Hey, you're speeding," and I go, "Oh, I didn't know what the speed limit was."
Yeah, that's a criminal
done that.
concept. Yeah. Okay, we can get into cars if we want to, but okay. All right, so let's say. All right. Anyways, but back to my original question. So, at the very least, you're going to have to call NAR, right?
Yes.
And say, "Hey, this guy owes me money."
Correct.
How many hours in that process? Let's say it goes perfectly. How many hours is that actually going to take?
I would agree with you. I know where you're going with this. So, is the juice worth the squeeze?
It's very southern of you.
But here's what but here's what I would say to that, right?
A virus said that?
I would say if this is something that becomes commonplace in terms of exclusive buyers agreements, which I believe it's going there, I believe that for a lot of agents who take their job very seriously and are very passionate about what they do, winning it in general would be more valuable than even the money that's associated with it, just to let everybody else know. Don't fuck around. Don't you dare, because I'm going to take your commission and every single piece of that money that I received, I just lit it on fire.
Which calls back to you being excited about getting a deal on something.
Right. And so what this brings into the third part of the lawsuit, which is also very damning for real estate agents, in my opinion, or the National Association of Realtors, is that one of the things that you get by being a real estate agent, or not a real estate agent, but a realtor, and being a part of this group, is you get access to the MLS. And the MLS, we all know, stands for the
Multiple
listing system. And the multiple listing system gives you an opportunity as a real estate agent to see real-time listings. You know when things are pending. You know everything. But guess what else it tells you? It exclusively lets you know what the percentage is that is available for your commission. Guess who doesn't get access to that information?
Who doesn't get access to that?
The
people
buyers.
who are not realtors.
That's right. So hypothetically, Travis, if you were looking for a house and you said, Chase, here are the 10 homes that I would like to see. Not saying that Chase or any ethical real estate agent would do this, but if he looked at the 10 homes that you were interested in viewing and 8 of them were offering a 3% commission and 2 of them were offering a 1% commission, and only he knew that, is it possible that he might encourage you not to purchase a home with a 1% commission versus a home with a 3% commission?
That's
Well,
very
I tell
likely.
you what's super popular in this market while homes are sitting is listing agents saying, I'll give you 3.5%, I'll give you 4%. You got builders saying 5% commissions to come to my community.
So is that steering?
Is that steering? Probably.
Is it? I don't know. I mean,
You could plead ignorance.
sure. It just turned out that the house I sold ended up being the highest commission one.
Just turned out that was the best one.
Yeah.
So this was what all of these lawsuits were about. That and real estate agents make too much money, which that was the part that drove me crazy.
Okay, what I can't figure out, and maybe both of y'all could explain this, the damages part. How did we come up to like $1.37 billion that for some reason these major brokerages owed?
Well, that's easy. I
To
mean,
somebody.
that's the buyer's commissions that were associated with everybody who signed on to the class action lawsuit.
The entire buyer's commissions?
The entire buyer's commissions, because what they're saying is that these buyer's commissions weren't negotiated by the buyers, they were negotiated by the sellers, and because of that, they are collusion, and therefore, take 3% of every single commission on every single transaction that was done over a period of, I believe it was like 2 or 3 years. I could be wrong on that. It's a big number, and it's already come out that, the bottom line is that just like any lawsuit, I mean, Keller Williams and NAR, and I believe it was Berkshire Hathaway, they have no means to be able to pay this. It's not even a feasible number.
Yeah.
So, that number is in the land of make-believe.
Yeah, it's funny whenever people do that, or they don't realize that there are, whenever there's a huge judgment and then there's just no way to pay it. I mean, for example, a lot of people wonder why catastrophic.
Well, there hasn't been a judgment yet,
Okay.
just for the record. That's what they were suing for. So we're still waiting for the judgment.
Yeah.
The judgment hasn't proceeded yet.
So it sounds like somebody's going to own Berkshire Hathaway's real estate arm. Who are the other plaintiffs?
Well, so it's Keller Williams, National Association of Realtors, and I believe it's Berkshire Hathaway. But
okay.
Let's not forget one thing here. Politics is, it's a big thing in the United States, and it just so happens that I don't know the exact number, but I know the National Association of Real Estate Agents is in the top 10 of donors to political parties.
Oh.
And when we're talking about politics, and again, we don't have a judgment yet, I'm very curious to see. First of all, this has already been appealed. Already.
Oh, of course.
It's already been appealed, and it has not been ruled on by a judge. So, that 1.78 billion, that's billion with a B, I don't think we'll see even a fraction of that as far as damages are concerned. But, it's a big number, and the media loves it.
Yeah. Of course. It's very exciting.
The real question is, are my dues going to reflect that?
I hope your dues go up, and you should too, because all that's going to do is weed out the people who probably shouldn't be in this business.
The people who shouldn't be in this business don't make a difference to my business,
Well, that's not true, because if there are multiple agents that are only selling one deal a year, those numbers add up. How do you think they got to 1.7 billion? There's $1.7 billion worth of commissions, and I'm not saying all of those were done by illegitimate agents, but wouldn't you like even maybe 1% of that? Maybe even one, or maybe even a tenth of that?
Sure. I'll take a tenth of 1.7. That'd be great.
So I think, and here's my controversial take, and this is where I'm going to look to you, because I think you're going to love this. And
I'm on my 5th drink. Let's go.
I look to you on this one because I feel like I'm ready for real estate agents. They're going to burn me down. This podcast is going to be over because I said this earlier today, and I want to say it to you. Here you've got an industry that is obviously under fire. And one of the main reasons, outside of all of the things that I've painted in black and white, let's face it, it's about money, right? And it has been blatantly said in court that real estate agents make too much money.
Who said that?
The attorney. That
Okay.
was the attorney. I forget his name. He's made a pretty big name for himself. I should know it.
I'm sure his salary is incredible.
Yeah, right. Maybe he makes too much money. Anyway, so this is something that I thought about today that is super controversial, and I find it interesting the brokerages that are associated with this, because one of the things that we joke about in real estate is that if I went into a restaurant right now and there was 40 people in that restaurant, and I got on a bullhorn and I said, "How many people in here have a real estate license?" You think 2?
Mhm.
2 people out of
In
40?
Austin, yeah.
Okay, that's a little less than I thought, but that's a good number, right?
Well, I'm just going 27,000 out of 1.1 million.
Okay, but 27,000, is that adults or is that everybody? You can't
Well,
be
I
a real
mean,
estate agent unless you're 18.
Okay, yeah, that's
How many
fair.
adults?
Oh, I don't see kids anymore in my life. I just kind of assume everyone in the restaurant was an adult.
Here's what I'm getting at. You have brokerages that I won't name that one of their big propositions is that you can become a real estate agent and sell real estate, and you can recruit other agents and you can receive compensation in their downline.
This sounds like EXP.
Oh, you said it, not me. And that's only one of them. There's others out there.
Yeah.
And so you give an incentive to real estate agents to recruit other agents, right? And a lot of the recruiting goes like this. Real estate offers you an opportunity to run your own business. Real estate offers you an opportunity to have flexibility in your lifestyle.
Debatable.
Well, you know it's debatable, but I'm talking about how
Yeah.
it's sold, right? So here I am saying, hey, be a real estate agent. All you've got to do is work your sphere, contact the people that you know, tell them that you're a real estate agent, make touch points, talk about real estate, recruit, hence the reason we have so many agents. And then what else do? We go on the internet as real estate agents, and we post that we're multi-million-dollar producers, which is a metric that is ridiculous. Oh, I'm a multi-million-dollar producer. Really?
You sold 4 houses.
You've sold 4 houses. And then what else do? Big team leads. They post pictures of their houses. They post pictures of their pools. They show themselves on a laptop in Tahiti writing an offer. Look at me, right? Look at my Ferrari. It's all hard work. And I'm not saying it's not. But there's a part of me, and this is the controversy, there is a part of me that kind of is saying, you did this to yourself. You did this to yourself as an agency, as a group, as a gang, whatever you want to call it. And now you've got people going, these real estate agents make too much money. How in the world do they know that? So on one hand, plaintiffs are saying, we didn't understand how much money we were being charged. We didn't understand that we couldn't pay these commissions. We didn't understand that this wasn't negotiable. And then on another hand, they're saying, well, but we know that you're making too much money. Like, how is that? How is it that real estate agents can have it both ways, right? Like, you're flashing your, not even success, but your goods, your lifestyle, your spoils.
Yeah, I always make fun of the realtors who need to post themselves in front of somebody else's fancy car,
right,
to make any type of marketing post. Like, I'm not gonna say I'm big time, make millions of dollars, but I'm not ever gonna post my stuff. But I feel like I have to post those like proof of success pictures, like I sold this house, and naturally you got to put the price next to it too. And so then immediately, you do those end of the year posts to prove that you've done business. It's like, oh, I did $12 million in business. Of course, every consumer takes out their phone calculator, and
right.
they say, oh, well, he earned $400,000.
But how is that indoctrined
and didn't spend
into your business?
$1 on marketing?
Right. How is that indoctrined into your business? Because what you don't see is like, tech guys being like, I just got a raise of $40,000 this year. You don't see like, whatever other, but you don't see attorney.
When you see those lawyers with the big
That's
commission or the What's the Thomas J. Henry? It'll be like settlement. Yeah.
Yeah.
The amount of the settlement.
And that's a good example. And what is the animosity towards attorneys?
Nobody.
People
likes
think they make too much money.
Right.
Like him.
So that's kind of my point. Like, you can't have it both ways, because I have agents on the podcast and they're like, listen, real estate is hard. You know, you've just blatantly admitted, like, hey, I haven't had a paycheck in a couple months, right? Like, those are the realities of real estate. But then on the flip side of things, you've got agents standing next to Ferraris. You've got agents, you know, standing in front of $1 million properties, you know, the Grant Cardones, all this other stuff. So it's like, you can't have it both ways. You just can't. You can't say that this is a tough job and, you know, whatever, and then also say, like, look at how easy it is. You should come and work for me. The earning potential is endless. That is true. It is true. But, like, you can't razz people in regards to the financial, like, public and not expect for people to start going, maybe we need to investigate these motherfuckers. Like, this is why drug dealers don't drive, you know, well, not all of them, but smart ones don't go out and sell like a pound of cocaine and then go buy a Rolex the next day. Right. And I know that's a poor analogy because drugs are illegal and real estate agents aren't doing anything illegal. But if you're going to start beating your chest about how much money you're making, people are going to start looking into what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah.
And if you're offering incentives to hire people on as real estate agents to get them in your downline and so on and so forth. And, you know, it's funny to me, like, even other real estate agents are afraid of other real estate agents because they're afraid they're trying to recruit them. I mean, have you ever had, you know, inner workings or conversations or coffee or dinner with other agents, and all of a sudden they start talking about how great their brokerage is, and immediately in the back of your mind you're like, this motherfucker just wants me to come and work for him.
I've had many.
Right.
And they work at companies that have a downline incentive.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. You said that was very libertarian of me for, like, not, you know, wanting to impose laws on what people can and can't do with their property. I do have a very libertarian bone in my body, so I'm not encouraging any sort of regulation on real estate agents. But all I'm saying is that if you're going to post next to a Ferrari and you're going to do all of these things, you better expect some people to come knocking at your door and asking, hey, what's going on here? Like,
Prepare to be audited.
yeah, prepare to be audited, and that's ultimately what happened. You know, in my opinion, this lawsuit was real estate as an industry got audited, and there's a couple things that are a little damning.
Yeah. I mean, it's also one of those, like, feast and famine type of careers where
Of course.
you make a lot of money in the good years and no money in the bad years. And
Listen, thank
actually
God I'm the
kinda
one
evens
editing
out.
this, because, you know, everything I just said sounds like completely terrible towards the real estate community, and I'm not trying to bite the hand that feeds me. You know, real estate agents, they are my bread and butter. We've talked about it. They are my friends. They are my referral partners, and I do not think profit is a dirty word. But I also don't think that gloating about commissions and talking about, you know, the amount of money that you're making in terms of real estate transactions and posting next to your exotic cars and everything along those lines is best practices if you're not expecting to get a little bit of heat and questioning on how you're making your money.
how many realtors do you work with who drive, you know, a super expensive sports car, you know, Ferrari? Or
Ferrari
Or better, you know?
that I work with or that I
Yeah.
know personally, because those would be two different
Or
things.
both.
I can think of three off the top
Like,
of my
I can
head.
think of one in Austin that owns a Ferrari.
I could think of three in Austin
Oh.
that own
yeah.
a car that I would consider exotic. I mean, like a supercar. Sure. And then let's talk about houses. Like, you know, now I'm going to go to like my hippie side, you know, like, do you really need a 6,000 square foot home? Like, is that really necessary? And I get it. Like, oh, well, now I sound like a fucking communist. Like, you know, like, I'll buy whatever I want. And I agree with you. Buy whatever the fuck you want. But, like, if you're going to flash it around, you're going to have to expect some people questioning what you're really up to.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to poke holes in the way that you get paid. And they're going to poke holes in the way that you're conducting yourself as a business.
I'm just thinking about the shame that I would feel pulling up to
Other
someone's
side.
pulling
you
up
go.
to someone's driveway in a Ferrari to hand them a listing agreement.
I don't think that real estate agents are driving to their listing agreements in their Ferrari.
Is there not some kind
God,
of
I hope
a
not.
like a thing where attorneys will do this, where they will drive a flashy car to prove that they're good at their
The
jobs?
G-Wagon, of course.
Yeah, of course. So I mean, is there not some aspect of that?
I would agree. And so I think that everything is a sales tactic, and I don't think that anybody who is working hard and making money and doing what they're doing doesn't like deserve the ability to purchase a Ferrari. And if you think that that is a good sales tactic, good for you.